morning, everyone. It's Saturday, which means it's time for yet another Salty Saturday live stream. I am your belabored producer, Matthew Kadish of the Salty Nerd Podcast. I'm very excited today to get to introduce you to our fantastic panel of nerds, and we got a lot of stuff to talk about, so let's get right to it. Matt Vader 74, how you doing, buddy?
Hi, I'm here. I'm monitoring all our other stuff that's going on.
Yeah, you want to fill everyone in?
We're for the first time ever on the Salty Nerd Podcast, we are attempting to be multi-platform. We're simul streaming over on Twitch, our brand new Twitch channel over there, Salty Nerd Podcast, easy to find it. And also we're supposed to be on Rumble as well. As
but
well as here
seem
on
to be working too well at the moment.
But Twitch is up. So
Twitch is up.
Yeah, Twitch is up. That's good. So we're going as we go.
And he's here. He's queer. He's our beard and our representation, our shield against all things criticism. Brian from the Popcast. How you doing, buddy?
What's up, brother, man? Good to hear. Good to be here.
It's been a big week for you, hasn't it?
It has been, sir. It really has been. I've been collecting receipts, my friend. All the people that said I was crazy for saying that Picard was going to be good, and now majority of people are on board. So that's good. That's a good
majority.
Yeah, we're going to get to Picard in a moment. Speaking of Star Trek, we have for the first time on the Salty Saturday live stream, Dr. Thomas Target, an real-life astrophysicist and Star Trek nerd. How you doing, buddy? Good to have you on the show.
Doing great. Thrilled with everything as always. No, I'm doing good. It's a pleasure to be here. It's wonderful to speak with a panel today.
Yeah, I think last time we had you on one of our Salty Saturday or Salty Nerd live streams, it was with David Hewlett, and you were talking about the real life science behind some of the Stargate stuff.
I owe you for that. That was a great moment, and I can't tell you how happy I was to be able to get to chat to that guy. He's just wonderful.
Yeah, we're big fans of Hewlett on this show, and if anybody wants to see that live stream, I believe it's on our celebrity interview playlist, so you can go check that out. And last but certainly not least, the horror master himself, the YouTuber who doesn't take any shit from anyone on Twitter, Mr. Cody Leach. How you doing, buddy?
Thank you so much for that intro. Yeah, I'm doing good. How you guys doing?
Good, man.
We are doing really good. In fact, we're doing so good because we have some fantastic people in the chat. All of our chatters are here. Let's give them a quick shout out. Sci-Fi Snob is here. Anthony Mark, good to see you, Anthony. Master Shadow Dragon. Danny's mom, Penny. Novus Tullius is in the chat. Richard Lawson. We got Joker Voice. Good to see you, Joker. Hashtag keep talking. JT Gunn is in the chat as well. Orwell's son. Salty Scorpion. 47 Yorktown. Mr. Smudboy. Good to see you, Smud. Goran Falth. Jordan Ashcroft. And Backyard Target, our number one. Backyard TARDIS, our number one super thanks and top patron. Thank you good to see you here, sir. I'm stumbling all over my words today. And real quick, we just want to give a shout out to some of our top donators. We have Bob Dorsey, who holds the record for our biggest super chat, over $100. And then we got the other people in the $100 club. These are all people who have super chatted at least $100 at one time. That is Bob Dorsey, Scotty Dub, and the Astro Nerd Boy. We also have our top donators in terms of frequency, which is Joker Voice and Fluffy Panda, and our top super thanks, Backyard TARDIS. And overall, our top contributor is Scotty Dub. So thank you for being such a consistent and wonderful patron of our show. We really appreciate your guys' support. And in case you didn't notice, we now have YouTube memberships enabled. Vader, you want to tell them what people get when they sign up for the YouTube membership?
Oh, yeah, I really love it when you get me when I'm not prepared to answer a question. But it's the standard YouTube membership stuff, emojis, avatars. We're going to be doing special streams and all kinds of stuff depending on what level you get, But we got two levels. $1.99 and $4.99. The $4.99 gives you a lot more stuff than the $1.99. I can't talk either today. It's contagious. And then we have a special $19.99 level with some extra perks there. So everybody likes to do those YouTube memberships, and we wanted to just be able to offer some stuff up to you all. So
yeah,
yes.
And these are in addition to our members area stuff over at Salty Nerd Club, where we do full length. Like right now, we're doing commentaries for the original series of Star Trek, where we actually go through the whole episode and kind of throw out our funny Mystery Science Theater-esque one-liners and stuff like that. So if you guys are into watching along with us as we watch the original series, head on over to saltynerdclub.com. A lot of exclusive content over there. All right, guys, let's get into this. The first thing we're going to talk about is kind of some sad news. So we're going to hopefully start off low and get higher as the show goes along. But we're going to talk about the latest announcement from Bruce Willis and his family, which is that it was announced a while back that Bruce Willis had a condition called aphasia, which kind of affects the way that you interpret information and communicate with people. And now they've come out and said that basically his diagnosis has worsened and he's got full-blown dementia. And this has affected his ability to communicate with people and stuff like that. And so basically he's done. He's no longer acting anymore. He had like a string of really bad straight-to-video movies the past couple of years because he was trying to make as much money as he could before he wasn't like physically able to do it anymore. But we still love Bruce Willis, and I just wanted to give the panel a chance to kind of wish him well and talk about their fondest memories of him. So Vader, why don't we start with you?
Oh yeah, it's super sad to hear this about Bruce Willis. Growing up in the 80s like I did, Bruce Willis was a large part of our entertainment back then. It's just super sad to hear. We all love Die Hard. That's a classic movie that we all watch every year. I mean, most of the people I know do anyway. And
Best Christmas movie ever. Yeah.
Best Christmas movie. I cannot talk today. It is the best Christmas movie ever. And yeah, it's just a super sad thing. And I don't like to see that happen to anybody. It's not a good way to go out. And I just hope his family keeps him as comfortable and as comfortable as they can. I guess I don't really know what else to say because it sucks and I hate to see anybody go through it. So that's it. That's what I got.
All right, Brian, what's your take on this? And do you have any fond memories of Bruce Willis movies?
Yeah, most Bruce Willis movies, even in the later stages when he was just trying to bang them out, I had a very good time making fun of them on YouTube. So I appreciate that, Bruce. No, I mean honestly, yippee-ki-yay. One of my favorite all-time movie memories was watching him and Sam Jackson in that scene where he is put in a sandwich sign with all kinds of racist stuff on it, and you see Samuel Jackson's face just like contort in anger, and he's out there and he's clearly hates the guy, but he also wants to try to save his life, and their unlikely friendship that saved the day. It's such an amazing movie. In addition to that, he was funny. He had very, very funny. A lot of times he did action and all that or whatever, but he had this like dry humor that really sold. One of my favorite movies of all time is The Fifth Element, like hands down. The Fifth Element is probably I liked it more than anyone else liked it back in the day, and I have the steelbook of it, and he just delivered it, man. He delivered every one of those dry sort of deadpan responses. It's sad to see it. Everyone gets older, everyone has problems eventually, but I am gonna miss Bruce.
He is too young for this, that's for sure.
Yeah. Cody, Bruce Willis, he's only 67 years old, and he's already got this advanced condition. What are your thoughts on this, and what are some of your fondest Bruce Willis memories?
It's actually something hard to talk about without getting emotional. I've kind of been holding back a little bit of teary eyes here. Like, as Die Hard is not only the greatest Christmas movie of all time, and damn everybody that says it's not a Christmas movie, by the way, but it's my favorite film of all time. And so the Die Hard series in general, with the exception of the last one, I love all of them. And movies like Pulp Fiction, Sixth Sense. I mean, Bruce Willis is one of those actors that has delivered some of my best movie love, some of my best movie memories. And so the fact that this is kind of the tail end of his story is heartbreaking. And it's, it's a horrific disease. The fact that he's going to lose communication, he's going to likely lose knowledge of who his loved ones are and everything. Who knows how far it could progress. It's horrifying, and it sucks. And it gets me emotional because I'm absolutely guilty of being one of probably everybody else that had no problem making jokes about his career the last 5 to 7 years. You know, I called him King of the Red Box for years. And when you find out that he was doing that because he didn't have a choice, and, you know, there was even people that were giving him shit saying that he's a garbage actor now because he was using earpieces, and you realize that it's probably because he couldn't remember his lines for medical reasons. Like, it sucks. It's one of those times where life kicks you in the ass and gives you a reminder that you don't know what everybody's going through. And so it's easy to poke fun. It's easy to look from the outside in and make jokes, but sometimes it's better to shut your mouth, I guess.
Yeah, you know, Dr. Target, you know, Bruce Willis famously, like, his career tanked kind of like early on after Die Hard, and then got this resurgence thanks to Pulp Fiction. And like, he had like his golden age, and then, you know, we move into the Red Box days where he's doing these, they call them geezer teasers or something like that, where, you know, you get these kind of older actors who show up for like a day's worth of work and shoot a movie and get paid like a lot of money for it. And but you find out that, like, you know, he had this medical condition and stuff like that. It really is kind of tragic. What are your fond memories of Bruce Willis?
I say how I feel about it is big bada boom. I've got to agree with Brian. It's The Fifth Element built a whole world in 2 hours. That feels wonderful and lived in and almost believable despite its anarchic craziness. That film meant so much to me, and I think someone in that condition, maybe, you know, they're going to have a tough time ahead, but they can be proud looking back upon a body of work that we're all going to remember and appreciate.
Yeah, totally agree. And we have a brand new member to our YouTube club, the man, the myth, the legend, Mexican Iron Man. Of course, he would be, you know, our first live on stream membership. Thank you, Mike. We really appreciate your support and your continued patronage of the show. You are fantastic. Thank you so much for that. All right. Now it comes time to another low point in the show.
One second. Let's do this really. We got a super chat.
Oh yeah,
for $2.
For $2. Brian being right equals broken clock equals golf clap. XOXO. So
it's hilarious how
twice a day.
Fluffy Panda really doesn't like me. It's very odd.
We got this one just came in too before we get this one.
All right.
Again,
Fluffy Panda for $10. BW was my main man. I loved all his movies, Bruce Willis, even the bad ones. He was one of the few voices against the grain Republican. His B or C movies are better than most movies nowadays. Hudson Hawk was gold. I do think Hudson Hawk is a little bit underappreciated. And Blind Date was also a kind of like a fun movie, I think. But thank you for the $10, Fluffy Panda, and keep on hating Brian because he keeps his ego in check. Speaking of Brian's ego, Brian, we got to talk about Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 1.
Yes.
I'm just going to go first on this. This was one of the worst episodes of TV I think I've ever seen in my life.
You're so full of shit.
I wish I was. Beverly Crusher as like a cold-blooded killer. Like weird ship designs. Picard's son coming out of nowhere.
You're so full of it. It's okay.
This is.
I already saw your other review. I know you're full of it right now.
I mean, like this is just. I don't know what else to say. Vader, what was your take on episode 1?
I really like Raffi. Raffi was the highlight of this show. The absolute pinnacle of Star Trek was Raffi talking to the computer. It was amazing.
Yeah,
and I really like
about losing her girlfriend. Yeah.
Hey, by the way, everyone complaining about Shotgun Beverly when you find out why she was killing people, you're gonna understand. That's all I can say.
Yeah, and
there's a reason why
they totally Han Solo'd Riker, making him a deadbeat dad and a bad husband. Didn't like that at all.
Also,
there's so much wrong with the show.
You do not have all the information.
You are an astrophysicist.
I know you're full of crap right now.
Dr. Target, you are an astrophysicist and a Star Trek fan. How much did you hate this episode?
I gotta be honest. You asked me to watch it, and I genuinely tried, but after I got 10 minutes in, I couldn't carry on. It was just too painful for me to possibly continue.
Yeah.
I hear you.
Now, Cody, you're not a Star Trek fan. How much do you hate Terry Metallis?
I'm actually surprisingly relieved. I was worried that I was going to be the guy coming in and being the outlier, but I think pulling hairs out of my nuts for an hour would have been more entertaining.
Yeah. So Brian, I know you're friends with Terry, but you got to tell him next time you talk to him how disappointed we are in him and how much we're not going to invite him to our Christmas party this year.
Okay, I'll let him know. I'm sure he's going to be super disappointed.
Yeah. So in case you didn't know, we were being facetious.
I was actually with Terry on Wednesday too, by the way.
Very, very nice. All right, so let's talk about Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 1. It was kind of funny because one of the things that I noticed was the YouTube reviews that came out very soon after this. So we had Red Letter Media, who have been very critical about the previous 2 seasons, rightfully so. They seem cautiously pessimistic about this so far. Like they seem to like the first episode, but they made a good point, which is, well, we like the first episodes of the other 2 seasons, which is our experience as well. But the biggest thing is Nerdrotic, because Gary has seen the entire season, and I listened to his full review of it yesterday. Not the whole season, but episode 1. And he's singing its praises. He's convinced that it's a good show. And if you can win over Gary from Nerdrotic, who does not pull any punches, I think that speaks volumes. Me personally, I really enjoyed the episode. It felt like a return to form for Star Trek. The characters acted like the actual characters that we know and love. The story actually, didn't meander. It wasn't about dealing with mommy and daddy issues or you know, like getting older and stuff like that. It was just
it wasn't like a long suicide letter.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't depressing. It was still kind of, it looked like a movie and how it was shot, kind of dark, but it felt like there were moments of levity, like the whole thing with Picard and Riker as the dynamic duo. Their interactions were so entertaining. We got tons of member berries, or as Brian likes to call them, Roddenberries. So the nostalgic feels were good. The storyline got going right away. We didn't really linger on anything too much. I had a really good time with this episode. Matt Vader, we've suffered through 2 seasons of this show in the past. It's really, really bad.
It's true.
What's your take on this?
So I know Brian is singing his praises, and Gary has endorsed this movie or this television show. But I've only seen 1 episode.
That's fair.
I'm feeling like you know how you go out for the night and you wake up in the morning and you're like laying on your side and there's somebody starts tickling your ear in the back of your head and it's like, oh yeah, I brought this person home with me last night, right? But then you're gonna roll over and it's either gonna be you're either gonna want to gnaw your arm off or you're gonna be the happiest dude in the world, right? Well, right now I don't know what's gonna happen when I roll over.
That's a good analogy.
You know what I mean? So I feel like yes, episode 1 was really good. I enjoyed it. I had a good time. It felt like Star Trek was back a little bit. But I have to admit, man, I'm a little bit gun shy. I don't know if I fully trust this yet. And Brian, I do have every bit of faith in your opinion on this and other people that we know. And for the first time in a long time, I'm really very optimistic about a Star Trek series. And but it's just for this one. I don't have any hope for Discovery and I'm hoping Strange New Worlds is still going to be good because it wasn't bad. But it is what it is. I would give this a good 7, I guess, maybe out of 10 or something like that. I enjoyed it. I had a good time, and I'm looking forward to the next one. So bring it on. Let's see what happens.
All right. So Dr. Target, Nerdrotic had a really good kind of analogy for Star Trek Picard Season 3 in terms of Kurtzman era Trek, which is it's like a blind squirrel found a nut in the middle of winter to survive on, and then another squirrel came along and took that nut and did something different with it. So what's your take on Star Trek Picard Season 3 within the context of all the bad Kurtzman era Star Trek we've currently gotten?
I love it. So if you go back just a couple of weeks, I was one of those people who was in that category of, I'm not going to watch this show on principle. I've been hurt too many times by Discovery and Picard, and I just didn't think I had it in me. But I think it was an absolute stroke of genius for the studio to send advanced copies to people like the Popcast and to Dave Cullen, because those are some of the only voices that were still out there that I would trust to say things about it that would bring me around to watch it.
So
and I'm glad they did. And I'm glad that I did watch it because of that, because I think I'd be missing out a little bit. Like I say, cautiously optimistic. But what I want to provide today is a sort of a little explanation of why there are some people who still might be quite reticent without being too ideological about it. And it's that fundamentally for me, how much you enjoy the show comes down to how easy it is for you to separate all the positive aspects of Star Trek Picard Season 3 from the sort of ruined universe of New Trek that it exists within. And let me tell you what I mean by that. I don't really mean to say that, Star Trek is more important to me than it should be. And I don't mean to say that I'm some sort of, who's the greatest fan type competition, because there's no winners in that type of competition. But what I mean to say is that the universe of Star Trek and the behavior of the people in it, the choices they make, the sacrifices of our characters who are not real, those things are very real to me because they've helped shape the person that I am today. And let's say, for the sake of argument, that Brian is right and that Star Trek Picard Season 3 is exactly what we hoped it can be, a sort of big-hearted, fun farewell and tribute to TNG that we didn't really get from Nemesis. When I'm watching the show, as much as I enjoy it, it takes a lot of effort for me to keep that universe separate from the show, because if I let that universe in, then the future I love is now one where people live in rundown trailers and hailing plants and drinking to suppress their trauma and smoking to suppress their trauma and murdering people to suppress their trauma, where Starfleet is run by profanity-laden idiots who can't be trusted and for some reason hate the Mayan who saved the Federation 100 times over only a few years earlier, where people commit suicide from untreated mental illness, even though mental illness was cured a century before, and where finally, this is the big one, all the achievements of Starfleet and the Federation and of our heroes will be reduced to ashes and irrelevancy because one Kelpian got a bit sad in a nebula, and the universe is being rebuilt in the image of Michael Burnham. So
that was the most
the
egregious
worst
thing that they did. Yeah.
So what I'm saying there is that I really enjoyed episode 1 overall. Like I'm with Vader and being cautious, but given that the people I trust are saying good things about this, I'm optimistic. But it still is very, very hard for me and for many other people to watch the show without letting that new Trek universe into our minds. I have to maintain a sort of separation of church and state between pre-2005 and post-2005 Star Trek to preserve the heart and soul of the franchise that meant so much to me. So that's how I'm feeling about it. I'm very glad that the podcast and others got me to watch it, but I need to maintain that separation because Star Trek means so much to me.
Yeah, my wall is still up.
Yeah,
it's there, but I mean, it can fall, it can come down, but we'll see. I guess we'll see.
Well, it is funny because as I was watching it, like I keep watching, I'm like, Picard's a synth. He's not even the real Picard. There's all this stuff that seasons 1 and 2 just like crapped all over that is still canon. Like, right, it still exists in season 3. They're just trying to ignore it. Cody, like, you said that you're not a Star Trek fan, like you haven't really seen a lot of the shows or the movies, so you're coming at this episode just kind of like clean slate. So from a complete outsider's point of view, what was your take on it?
Well, I have a strange relationship with Star Trek because my dad is a big Trek fan. And so as a young kid, I actually saw all 4 of the Next Generation movies in theaters, but I have almost no memory of them with the exception of First Contact, because that's the only one I ever liked enough to watch over and over again. Love the Borg. Yeah. And I've seen Wrath of Khan. That's the only movie I've seen from the original movies. And of course, I've seen all the J.J. Abrams ones because they're modern, very different. But I've never seen any of the shows. So it was actually shocking to me whenever everybody started talking about season 3 and loving the fact that the Next Generation cast and everything was coming back, because as somebody that never watched it, I assumed that's what Picard was from the beginning. So I was like, well, what the hell did they do in the first 2 seasons? And what is this? Yeah. Why did that's a weird thing to celebrate. So yeah, it's a very well-produced TV show. And I thought the special effects were really good on it as well. The magic of it kind of was empty for me, though, because I don't have the nostalgia built in that this show is going to be giving you the feels for. Because from what I assume from this first episode, I mean, there's not a whole lot going on. It's a lot of setup so far, which one episode in can't hold it against that. But I could watch it and tell that a lot of the magic, a lot of the things that people would love about this is Picard getting back with Riker and getting some of that, character dynamic back and getting some of those nostalgic feels of this is what we've wanted. What the fuck were you doing the last 2 seasons? But because this is the first thing that I've watched Star Trek television wise, it was fine. It didn't necessarily motivate me to watch the rest of the season, but it's 3 seasons into a show that's playing on nostalgia from a show that's decades old. So I'm the last person that's marketing to.
All right. So, Brian, season 3 has a lot of hurdles to overcome, but you're the only person on the panel who's seen the entire season. You and your friend and lover, Terry Metallis, are very, very close, sharing a lot of information along with bodily fluids. What are some, can you share some of what Terry overcome in dealing with this season?
What is wrong with you?
First off, hey Tom, thanks for trusting us, man. I appreciate that. Cody, as far as watching seasons 1 and 2, you don't have to. Seasons 1 and 2 have nothing to do with season 3. It's like a self-contained thing. Pretty much picks up right where the last movie dropped off. So you could have joined it if you wanted to. Yeah, the thing is, I think a lot of folks are cautiously optimistic, and they should be. The last 2 seasons were horrible. And the last season sort of bait and switched. Like the first season was just bad out the gate. But the last season, there was 2 good episodes. And you're like, okay, all right, this might be going somewhere. And then we time traveled to Los Angeles. And all of a sudden, Star Trek became Los Angeles Trek. It was very odd. But I'll say this, stick with it, because the first episode is, and I don't want to say worse, but it's out of all the 10, it's the least of the 10. It's the worst episode in the sense where if you like this episode, oh my God, you're going to love the rest of it. Because the first episode is such a setup. Like, it requires so much time to sort of set up everything that there was no big reveals or whatever. But after this, pretty much every episode has some amazing reveals. There's a couple episodes that are also sort of setup episodes, but even then, you're so into it that you don't even care. So if you like this episode, you're definitely going to love the rest of it. In fact, the reason why they showed 2 episodes at the premiere, so there's 2 classifications of reviewers, right? There's the people, or 3. There's the people that got invited to the premiere to watch the first 2 episodes. There's people that got the first 6 episodes. And then, like you said, the people that share bodily fluids with Terry Metallis got all 10, right? Well, the thing is, the people that only saw the premiere, they still showed them the first 2 episodes at the Chinese Man at the theater in LA. Because if you only watch the first episode, you're gonna walk out of that theater disappointed, because it's such a setup. It's a cliffhanger. So the next episode, I think, is gonna probably set the concrete for you and allow you to really dig your heels in. That's my opinion.
Now, Brian, so a lot of people who are critical of Kurtzman era Trek, and rightly so, point out that Terry Metallis was also the executive producer on season 2, which was absolutely terrible. So can you tell us the difference about his involvement with season 2 and season 3?
Yeah, I'm not gonna speak for him, but I'll tell you this: he popped into that writer's room. He helped set up the season, and then he went and worked on season 3 independently. So he did get the credit because he started it off with Akiva Goldsman, I think his name was. But they were working on season 3 at the same time as season 2, and Terry was solely focused on season 3 after that first initial setup for season 2. Which is why when you watch season 3, you're going to notice that the questions they asked in season 2 that you thought they would address, they just don't. Because Terry didn't write that part. He was just like, that's not my story. I'm telling my story. there's things that he has to deal with that are canonically that he has to deal with, like the synth thing and Rafi and 7 or whatever. But the majority of what he did here is completely independent of seasons 1 and 2, and his only connection to season 2 was like getting the ball rolling and then taking his team and doing season 3. This is why I don't blame him for season 2. I hated season 2 too. Like I was really disappointed because I thought the whole time it could get better. And that's the problem with season 2 is that up until like episode 8, you thought they can pull up out of that tailspin and save the day, and they just kept doubling down on bad ideas. But you know, in this season, if you think you're gonna see Girardi, you ain't gonna see Girardi. That's as much as I'll say.
Dr. Target, you know, Kurtzman era Trek has done a lot of damage to the fan community around Star Trek. I know many lifelong Star Trek fans who are just kind of like, I'm out. Like, I don't want to deal with this anymore. In fact, I think there was a good argument about how, like, with Discovery seasons 1 through 4 or whatever, you know, it might pull in ratings on the first run, but nobody's going back and rewatching those seasons like they are with like Enterprise and Voyager and DS9 and TNG, and certainly not the original series. It's like these things come out, they're consumed, the fan base gets pissed off, and they move on. From your take, what would Star Trek have to do in order to actually start bringing fans back into the fold?
This is good. This is, of course, a question that the podcast asked about, you know, sort of what would it take to do that? And in my sort of wildest dreams, what I would love would be a Kurtzman era Star Trek reset. You know, let's just say that's one timeline or that's one thing, and we could just go back to picking up the story again. And following that thread on, I want to acknowledge some of the conversation in chat about, you know, like, hey, you guys are maybe being a bit too lenient on it, because let's imagine I had my way and there was no Star Trek since 2005, and Star Trek Picard season 3 was the very first thing that came to us. There'd still be a lot of little things in it that I would be complaining about had I not already been beaten down by previous seasons of Discovery and earlier seasons of Star Trek Picard. Like, I would still really dislike, say, the bridge design of Federation ships in the future. I know that's a minor thing, but you know, I mentioned this earlier. Like, I made a whole little, like, you know, crazy man, internet nerd, basement dweller list of like things that sort of bugged me as I went through the show. And if I pick random ones, it's like Hellbird is a dumb name for the Borg to name a computer virus, or for the Enterprise crew to name a virus, or don't go to warp with another ship still docked to you, or all the sort of random, why does this thing look like this, and why would you call your operation the Red Lady? If I was going to attack New York, I wouldn't call it Operation Attack Green Lady. You know, it's too
right.
So there's still a lot of little flaws like that. Oh, Brian, you mentioned Shotgun Beverly. It wasn't her shooting people that bugged me. It was the fact that she had to, in the future, pump a shotgun to prime it. That's not how tech works. But again, so these are smaller things, but I do want to acknowledge for the people in chat who are saying, you know, hey, you guys have had your standards lowered and you're being a bit kind on it now because of there's flaws. But overall, I'm glad I was convinced to give it another go despite those flaws, because I'm, as Vader said, I'm cautiously optimistic going forward. But if I could consign all of modern Trek to an alternate timeline or to a Dallas-style bad dream, I would. But since I can't, I'm going to try and go forward with this sort of, as I mentioned, the wall in my head between old Trek and the bits of and the parts of Picard season 3 I can enjoy.
Yeah.
Now, Cody, you're no stranger to online, you know, movie drama. A big part of the Star Trek kind of like issue, I guess, is like you have a faction of the Star Trek fan base who's like, you know, even if the producers do something good, we don't want to support it because they've done so much damage. We want a complete rehaul. And that's kind of like where Doomcock is coming from on the Star Trek side of things. And then you have the other side, which is like, well, if we don't reward them for doing the good stuff, then they're just not going to do the good stuff anymore. So like, where's your take on this? Do you think that that fans should try to support this show if it's good, or should they just take that hard line and be like, look, until we get a regime change, we're not going to be supporting anything?
No, I don't agree with the last one at all. I mean, I think that's a perfect representation of toxic fandom right there. Like, I get it. There's times where you get a franchise or a a property that you love that just seems like it's just going into the toilet, and you're just screaming like, why are you doing this? But if they turn it around and they start to do things, like, what more can you ask? Like, it's kind of silly to me. If they're hearing all of the complaints, if they're hearing the criticisms, and they're making genuine moves to try to make a better show and make a show that appeals to all of the fans, that should be rewarded. It shouldn't be like, well, a good effort, but we want scorched earth. Like, that sounds like Zack Snyder's cult shit. So it's no. As somebody that is totally removed from Star Wars, so I don't have any real genuine context on what has been going so wrong with modern Star Trek. If they're starting to do what the fans want and what the fans have been asking for, rewarding that with more hate seems very silly to me.
Yeah, it seems counterproductive.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Thank you.
Yeah, Brian, if this is a hit, if Star Trek Picard season 3 comes out and it's everything the fans wanted and it gets a lot of praise and accolades and stuff like that, do you think Kurtzman will just change up his strategy and hand things over to Terry, or is he going to take all the credit and just keep doing what he's been doing?
Yeah, he'll probably take the credit. I want to be as like optimistic as possible, but in order for the next show that comes out to be a Terry-led show, or a show led by someone who's a fan like Terry is, and not some goober trying to preach for 10 episodes. Like, this has to be well received in the same vein that Pike was well received. So the thing is, Alex Kurtzman does listen to fans, but only when it's so overwhelming that his shareholders send him emails.
Seems that way, huh?
That's my opinion.
Yeah.
The reason we have Strange New Worlds, which we can all agree is at the very least a proper step forward, right? Even if there's problems with it, is because fans, most fans, new Trek lovers, old Trek lovers, legacies, whatever, when they saw Pike, they lost their minds and they started petitions and they hashtagged and it was trending for like weeks. And the biggest episodes they had, and this is according to Kurtzman, I'm not making this up. The biggest episodes the most successful episodes of Discovery were the episodes that had Pike in it. So that was a no-brainer for the powers that be to say, okay, well, make a Pike show, dummy.
Yeah, it is pretty interesting, right? Because I remember season 2 of Discovery, Pike and Spock were the absolute highlights of that season.
Right.
I mean, it might as well have been a Pike show, right? So, right. And they did. We were all clamoring. It's like, that's what we want. Give us that Star Trek. Give us, we were all discussing, why can't we get the 10 years before Kirk showed up? That kind of stuff. Let's see some of those adventures. So, I mean, I guess it's true. They do listen, but man, holy crap, dude, we have to be loud.
Yeah, we have to be stupid loud.
Stupid loud. And it's pretty wild how it takes that much for them to figure out what the fans want. And the same kind of thing for this Picard show. Seasons 1 and 2 are garbage, absolute garbage.
Yeah,
I'm never gonna watch them again. Yeah, but so far, one episode into season 3, I'm like, okay, I'm feeling this one a little bit. I like this take. So I guess we'll see what happens, right? So
I can forgive some of the things I hate about the world of New Trek if the TNG characters are behaving like they should. And I think that's the battle that's going to be happening with fans trying to go forward with this. As Kadish mentioned, I still rewatch TNG, DS9, Voyager, Enterprise. And I think the only thing, I was watching the podcast video on this, and they were sort of comparing Picard season 3 to mid-season Voyager, maybe like Voyager season 5 or 6, I believe you said. And that was one of the only things that was a bit of a stretch for me to believe, in that when we use the words good and bad,
we said Voyager season 4 specifically.
There we go, season 4 or 5.
Yeah, because that's when they introduced 7 and 9. That's why
it's still tough.
It has the same chemistry.
These are still kind of maybe not completely apples and oranges, but like apples and orange apple hybrid comparison. I still sort of don't see them as direct kind of things.
Well,
like
yeah,
that.
it's not the exact same thing, but what it was people kept asking us, well, you've seen 10 and we can't share like spoilers or whatever, so compare it to something in Legacy Trek. So I went back and I thought about every single thing I've seen, and for me, Voyager season 4, Scorpion part 1 and part 2, those are the cliffhanger and the premiere that drew me back into the world of Trek when I was sort of phasing out a little bit. And Voyager, that really got me back on to like just as a Trek addict, those 2 episodes. So when someone asked me to compare it, I said, well, because that's what got me back into binge watching every episode of Trek ever made. And I feel like this, for me, I've now seen this like 5 times already. I've just independently watched it 5 times. It's absolutely stunning. So it had the same feeling for me, which is why I said Voyager season 4.
Real quick, before we move on to super chats and our next topic, I just want to point out 2 things about this episode. First is Todd Stashwick as Captain Shaw, my new all-time favorite Star Trek character.
Really?
Like when he was introduced and he just owned Picard and Riker. Because I recognize this guy from other Terry Metallis shows like 12 Monkeys and stuff like that. He does a great job at playing like a real like douchey kind of like bad
foil
guy,
right?
And but in this, I was like, this is another Jellicoe situation where like obviously he's super competent, he's by the book. He has a different style than like that whole conversation about like jazz versus like stuff with structure. Like it was
that was hilarious. No, I deleted all that crap.
No, it was perfect. When they asked him to do this thing, he's just like, no. So like
he said it with such resonance too.
No. Instantly, I love this character. I hope he doesn't get killed off. I hope that I would love to see a spinoff of him commanding the Titan. Like I would just love that.
No.
The other thing is Ed Spielers as Jack Crusher, who were introduced at the end as as Beverly's new son, who's also obviously Picard's son.
Whoa!
But,
spoilers.
I'm not saying anything.
I'm
although I did make a video 6 months ago that said he was Picard's son.
Yes,
I'm a fan of the actor. He was recently in season 4 of You on Netflix, and he was also in Downton Abbey and stuff like that. So like I feel like he's a good actor, and he's kind of nailing Patrick if it's just the British thing or like whatever. But I'm thinking that like I'm seeing a lot of setup here with Geordie LaForge's daughter, Jack Crusher as Picard's son, and like Captain Shaw and Commander what's it, 7 of 9? I forget her real name. But like I'm starting to see like, okay, I could see like a spinoff coming. Like this is the final season of Picard, but they're setting the stage for a new Star Trek series set in the TNG time frame. Brian, can you tell me, am I way off base here?
No, you're not way off base. Without actually giving anything away, you're not off base at all.
Great.
I can see it.
All right.
Matt, I need to jump on Shaw for just a second because he got a whole page in my batshit crazy basement dwellers thing. Okay, so I think the character has a lot of potential, but in that scene, you can enjoy. If you enjoyed the sassiness, fine. But there's a lot of very sort of new Trek components in that scene. He came across to me as kind of a sleazy car salesman, and it's just the way he spoke. So, for example, he said, "No need for intros," so people don't abbreviate. We do that in our world today. People in the future don't abbreviate like that. He used the word Bourbonista that I had to look up, and the first hit on Google is from Urban Dictionary, and people in Star Trek should not be speaking from Urban Dictionary. He uses the phrase loosey-goosey. He's the phrase loosey-goosey, you boys, congrats, fellas, I love ya. And yeah, he talked far too colloquially and which is one of the major sins of Von Trek, is people to talk like sassy millennials.
I gotta cut you off though. What about Trip, dude? If you're gonna have if you're gonna worry about speech with Shaw, what about Trip Tucker?
That's good, sure, but he's internally consistent to a sort of Southern attitude. Maybe it's a Southern attitude of today a little more than the future.
And here's the deal:
but it's
once you see more of this character, you'll realize that that's his personality too. It's not a new Trek.
But he seems more internally consistent with a sleazy car salesman than with.
You'll hear his backstory, and his backstory is gonna. I can't say anything. You just
I'm gonna trust you, but I
Yeah.
just needed to defend the concept of,
I hear what
like,
you're saying. Yeah, but
yeah. It's just like,
more,
hey, this is not how people in the future. Look, with Jellicoe, I mean,
hint,
like,
it's a lot more like Trip Tucker than what you're saying.
gotcha.
It's very similar.
Here's what I want. I want Dr. Target. I want him to type up his list and send it to us, and we'll share it on Twitter or something.
I think Vader, we need to do a special one-off where we do the kind of frame by frame, but for the,
Oh,
for the
I can't.
basement dwelling.
I can't do the EFAP thing, dude. I just can't do that.
Gotcha.
But yeah.
Let's get to some super chats real quick before we move on. So Backyard TARDIS for $10. The Titan refit is so sexy, mix of Enterprise A and E. It was kind of cool to actually see ships that look like Star Trek ships in a Star Trek show for a change.
Yeah.
So that was nice.
It looks a lot like the USS Ares from the VR Bridge Commander game that came out on Steam a while back.
I do think they need to put some more lights on the bridge and in the corridors of the thing, but whatever, it's fine.
And put some carpet in there.
It needs carpet. Yeah, I would forgive
carpet.
half of this with carpet.
I complain about the lighting too. It's weird. But the way it was defended was like, this is like the cinematic sort of style of now, and like
it's very cinematic.
But I kind of feel like if you're stuck on a starship for like years at a time, it needs to feel almost like a hotel or a resort in order to keep you from going crazy. That's just me. But Backyard TARDIS for another $5. Thank you, sir. This episode felt like what the original series movies felt like. It's not exactly the same as the show, but it's our heroes older going for one last mission. That's true. It does feel like that.
That's pretty accurate.
All right. So Whiskey Jack for £2. Fed ships ain't birds of prey. Turn the lights on. That's true. Federation ships are not birds of prey.
I don't disagree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't disagree either.
All right.
And I love it, but
So we talked about the controversy surrounding Star Trek. Now let's talk about a different type of controversy surrounding Winnie the Pooh. Cody emailed me the other day, and he was like, hey, there's this thing going on with this new movie, Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. Do you mind if we talk about it? I'm like, definitely, this is our type of thing. So basically, for those of you who don't know, the copyright for Winnie the Pooh kind of lapsed, even though Disney still has certain rights to the character. It's now public domain. And so there was a movie company that kind of jumped on this and turned the Winnie the Pooh characters into a slasher horror movie called Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. And they're planning on kind of extending this concept to Bambi, Peter Pan, the Grinch, and a couple other childhood children's tales to turn them and give them a horror twist. And this movie recently came out. And the director has been on the warpath. He says he's been getting death threats, but he's also been going online and basically attacking anyone who was critical of the movie. Cody, you're kind of at the center of this controversy. Can you give us like a rundown of like what happened, like your take on the movie and, just the craziness that the director is like he's going full Mangold on you at this point.
I wish I knew more about that reference, but yeah, you have this movie that was advertised last year, and I immediately rolled my eyes because I saw the poster, didn't watch the trailer, and I went, okay, I could, of course, I'll have to give it a chance before, otherwise I'm speaking out of ignorance. But it seems like this is going to be a really low rent slasher film that's just going to be banking on the gimmick of Winnie the Pooh killing people. And so I had no interest in seeing it, but being that I have a horror YouTube channel, I knew that the comments asking where my review was going to be overwhelming. So saw that it was going to have a one-night Fathom event last week. And with Fathom events, that means premium price tickets. Some areas charge $20 per ticket to come see this movie. So I bit the bullet, went to go see it. And I don't think anybody going to see this thought that it was going to be good. I think that at most, people were optimistic that maybe it's going to be so bad that it's good. And that was where my optimism was, is I walked in saying, okay, maybe, being that I didn't watch the trailer and I didn't know the tone that they were going for, maybe this is going to be a schlock fest that really plays up the Winnie the Pooh, if you want to call it lore of Winnie the Pooh, using Winnie the Pooh catchphrases, oh, bother, and silly old bear, and or like, putting honey pots on people's heads and smashing it with a hammer or something. I was like, this could be.
I would watch the shit out of that.
That was what I was hoping for. So even I'm trying to play as optimistic as possible, walking in and going, please, like, be something like that. And the movie is an absolute dead serious, dark, mean-spirited slasher film that literally plays like a Wrong Turn sequel, but the two dudes walking around in hillbilly clothes have a plastic Winnie the Pooh mask and a plastic piglet mask. It aside from the initial 2 minutes of setup, giving you the little cartoon of why Winnie the Pooh is crazy and one of the characters being called Christopher Robin, there's nothing in the movie that does anything with the Winnie the Pooh concept.
That's
at all.
hilariously bad.
Yeah. And so I walked out very upset because as somebody that loves horror, I'm very protective of it. And there is a large, loud amount of people that think that horror is gutter trash because of movies like this. And again, if you like movies like this, I'm not shitting on your opinion. You're allowed to like whatever you like. I like some movies that people think are trash, but
we all do.
This felt like such a low effort that was only put out in theaters because they knew they were going to be able to scam all this money out of people based off of the gimmick and the virality from last year. And it really bothered me.
Dude, I'm so glad because last night when I heard we were talking about this, I was looking for showtimes to go watch it. And I couldn't find any. I'm actually stoked right now that I couldn't find any.
Yeah. And so to me, I was kind of offended is not the right word. I was kind of insulted as a horror fan that this is an effort that you wanted me to come pay for, let alone pay $20. I paid more money to see this movie than I paid to see Avatar 2 at the world's tallest IMAX theater in fucking 3D.
Jesus, bro.
And so,
that's no good.
And so, you know,
wait, why did it cost so much extra?
Because they marketed it as a Fathom event, which is like the 1 night only, 2 nights only, and they hiked the price up for that.
Oh, that makes more sense.
Yeah, they did the same thing with Jeepers Creepers Reborn, and I had a very similar reaction to that.
Oh my God, I hated that movie too.
Yeah, exactly. And so I went online, did not mince my words. I'm somebody that I don't care if it's a low budget movie that took 8 days to shoot or if it's a $250 Marvel movie. If I'm paying to see it, I'm the consumer. I'm going to give you my consumer experience, and it was not good. And so I gave my review for it, and I put out a tweet that said, if you pay to see movies like Blood and Honey, you get more movies like Blood and Honey. Horror fans shouldn't settle for things like this anymore. The fact that my theater was packed depresses me. And it was. There was at least 30 people in attendance. And the only time I see theaters full like that is when it's a Marvel film. And when I said that depresses me, it's the same way that it depresses me if I walk into a really bad Marvel movie where I'm going, damn, you know how many movies I've seen over the past month that were fucking incredible and it was me and one other dude in attendance?
All right.
But these movies get everybody in. That's what I'm speaking to. Again, go watch what you want. It's not a gatekeeping thing. If you really were excited for this, by all fucking means, go. But as somebody that paid $20, I'm putting my voice out saying, if you value that $20, you might want to spend it elsewhere. So that tweet got a response from the production company, Jagged Edge Productions. And they basically said, I disagree. We've already made enough money to have 5 times the budget for the next one.
Jesus.
And me reading that, and again, Twitter, text, it's horrible to read tone. Me reading that felt a little scummy. Especially when I click on their profile.
Scummy.
Yeah, I click on their profile, and the ones that they're responding to is like, we're embracing the hate. And it's like, well, embracing the hate and taking criticism is not the same thing. So you actually listening to the people that watched your film and are saying, this is not good, this is what you should do better. So the fact that the only response
to be fair, what else do you have? You either embrace the hate or you cry in your bedroom. It's like, I guess they're making the most reasonable choice.
And yes, yeah, exactly. But that paired with, it's okay because we got enough money to make 5 times for the next one. It kind of felt
that
like
was dirty, yeah.
Yeah, it just kind of felt like, okay, well, that I read it as a little scummy. And so I felt no issues whatsoever, especially after multitudes of people were just jumping all over me like I was criticizing Citizen Kane. I put out a tweet later on that this is the one that started everything. It said, there's a difference between a movie intentionally aiming low for schlocky, campy fun and a movie that puts in 0 effort because it knows horror fans will pay to see it anyway. And with that, I'll take my leave on this subject. And that's the one that the production company retweeted and started trying to kind of rally the troops against me specifically, but of course, anybody else. And there's a couple of smaller news outlets that have actually made a little article out of it. You know, Winnie the Pooh producers take on rude tweets and stuff like that.
I'm surprised that there's troops to be rallied.
Well, that's the funny thing, because I read one of the articles and it's like, you know, fans were quick to flock to the production company's aid. And I'm like, why don't you add in the little asterisk that the amount of people that are responding to them saying that they're being petty and ridiculous and their movie was horrible and everything I said was correct, wildly overwhelming to the amount of people that are saying I was being rude and mean.
Right.
Well, I think they're also employing the same PR agency that Snyder used to get their bot farms to attack people who didn't like his movies. The interesting thing about Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey is like from a marketing perspective, it's a very smart thing. They basically took this very well known IP and rode the brand awareness of that IP into premiering this movie. It was micro low budget. It was shot for less than $100,000. It premiered in Mexico City or something like that for the Fathom event thing. It made over $1 million on just its like 1 or 2 night premiere thing. And so to say that the next movie is 5 times the budget, it's like $500,000 for their next movie. But it does kind of bring up this concept of like attacking the fans for legitimate criticisms. We've had that in Star Wars. We've had that in Star Trek. Dr. Target, like, is this just history repeating themselves? Why can't Hollywood understand that this is a losing strategy to attack the fan base?
So I think something this group has talked about before was that it's probably a bad thing when we hear from actors about their thoughts on a lot of these things, because they're not the experts on this. We want to see them portray these characters, not tell us what they think about it. I think the only thing worse than hearing from actors about these kind of things is hearing from studios. Because again, that's a heavily skewed market, and the cynical part of me is like, is this more about like viral advertising and finding ways to get people talking about it? Because fundamentally, I'm going to solve this problem by ignoring it, and that's I think is probably going to be one of the best ways for me to make my opinion known on things like this.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
and
so
there's been a lot of people. I'm sorry. There's been a lot of people that have responded to this saying that they were going to give the movie a chance, and this has completely turned them off from it.
Yeah, Vader. We had James Mangold attack us, and we know that the best things for a horror movie to have are boobs, blood, and scares. And it doesn't seem like this movie.
Little people too. Gotta have some
little people. Yeah, but it doesn't seem like this movie has any of that stuff.
No.
In fact, the characters Pooh and Piglet, they're supposed to be these anthropomorphic, half man, half animal things, but it's very obvious, just like dudes in like latex mask, and there's no boobs in it. From what I understand, the murders are just kind of your run of the mill cookie cutter slasher things. No humor at all. Like
there's no boobs, really.
There's one scene very quick early on, but funny enough, one of the actresses I think is like a pretty popular OnlyFans model, and her whole scene is about vanity, and she's taking selfies and she's moving the bikini around, and she wasn't the nude scene, so it was like a setup. We're like, oh, well, okay, that didn't happen.
Well, bears do have 6 nipples, so they missed a chance there.
I don't know, man. This doesn't sound like anything I have any interest at all in watching. This sounds like, to me, in our little world, this is something that Mr. Kadish here would like recommend we watch in October, just to see what kind of silly reaction he would get out of us. And I'm on to you now. I'm not going to fall for your tricks anymore, Matt. So, not my kind of movie, and but it's always good for sub counts to get a little controversy going with people that make these things. So can't deny that. So
yeah, it seems like the goal of the production company is mostly to generate as much controversy as possible for like the free publicity. And Brian, this is kind of interesting because they basically 10x their budget, right, on just like a quick premiere based off the strength of this brand, and they're planning, like they've already approved a Winnie the Pooh 2. They've got a Bambi horror movie in the works. They've got a Peter Pan horror movie in the works. They've got the Grinch from The Grinch Stole Christmas horror movie in the works, and they're all going to be set in the same universe. So they're basically setting the stage for a children's horror verse going forward. And they're basically taking all these IPs that just recently relapsed into the public domain that people basically grew up on, and they're writing the brand recognition of that to basically churn out these cheap films that they can then like turn a quick profit on. What's your thoughts on this?
I think look, it sucks that it's a bad movie and people are wasting money, but from a purely capitalist point of view, it's genius.
Oh, for sure.
Like now their reaction to fair and reasonable criticism is scummy, but they're probably not going to even feel the pain.
It's like, do they not understand that they made a really bad movie on purpose? They had to have known this was a bad movie, right?
Yeah, no, 100% they knew it was a bad movie. I mean, come on. I mean, even the dumbest person can look at a movie and be like, yeah, this is bad.
Well, the thing that gets me is like they decided to play the movie straight, whereas you have this concept of Winnie the Pooh as a slasher killer. Why not play up the campiness or like the humor of that? Like why not make some jokes and know what type of movie you are making as opposed to playing it completely straight?
Because you have to be able to write.
Yeah.
I guess
this is the director's first film. Is that correct, Cody?
I don't believe it is. I haven't done a whole lot of research, to be honest with you. I'm not interested in anything they do in the future either. But from what I've been told from a lot of responses, this is the best effort that has come out of this production company so far. So they have made other films. If I was to assume, they probably have a lot of straight to VOD type movies. And this is where this movie belongs. That's where this movie would have found its audience. But because of the virality, whenever it was, unearthed that they were making this and they got so much attention last year, they shoved it into theaters where it had no business being. And when you shove it in theaters, you get a lot more people seeing it. You get a lot more critics seeing it. And when you charge $20 to go see it, you're going to have a lot more people looking to find reasons why this was not worth $20. And so they did it to themselves. They got the profit for it, but you got to take the good with the bad.
Right. Yeah. So, Cody, I know that you got a lot of flack when you came out against Halloween Kills last year. How does that compare to the flack you're getting for this movie?
Well, it was Halloween 2018 where a lot of that came from. But this is nowhere in comparison to that. I mean, Halloween 2018, first of all, I was a much earlier YouTuber, much smaller, not nearly as many people out there ready to come to my aid. But that was literally getting death threats. That was people saying that I should have aborted my daughter because I gave the movie a 3.5 out of 5. There was things like that, and it went on for months. So that is a mountain compared to the molehill of Pooh Bear here. This is just some people that, if you don't support every single tiny effort out of indie horror, I guess you're an enemy to indie horror, even though I'm one of the biggest champions of indie horror you're ever going to find. And a movie studio throwing a tantrum, and that's fine. Like it's been kind of entertaining just to watch it go down, because like I made even a YouTube short making fun out of it. It's like throwing toothpicks at me. It's fine.
Wasn't there a tweet that was basically accusing you of racism because they said that indie horror was the only avenue for filmmakers who weren't white to like actually get movies made?
That is a correct fact there. Yes. Somebody's response, there was another indie director that retweeted it, and I respond saying that, this is wrong. Indie horror, it's great that indie horror has found its place in theaters. And I responded respectfully. I said, 100% agree. I'm glad that it does, but this is not a good example of that. And one of the earliest responses to that was a guy saying exactly what you just said. It's like, somebody should remind Cody that that indie horror is one of the only places that writers and directors can get hired that aren't white dudes. And I was like, so it's racist to not like Winnie the Pooh?
Sorry, that is a ridiculous statement.
Yeah. And it's statements like that completely defeat whatever argument you're trying to achieve. Like you hear that, people just shut off. They're like, okay, they're all morons.
Right. Yeah. Well, also, like, let's say you are educated and you understand that that's a ridiculous, asinine statement, but you also do not want to get canceled and fight a giant, dumb mob of people. So you're like, all right, whatever. I'm done.
You know what they should have done is they should have made a movie about Winnie the Pooh and his gang becoming grifters down on the Las Vegas Strip for photographs, and then they went crazy and started killing tourists and stuff. That would have been a great
idea, bro.
Like that would have been a way better movie.
They're in the secondhand Winnie the Pooh costumes, dude.
Yeah, it's like that would have tripled their budget to shoot on the strip.
Some guy takes a picture of him from around the corner and doesn't give him the $5 bill. And that sets Pooh off. And the rest of the movie is him chasing him down.
Real quick, we got a super chat from JT Gunn for $2. Vader should do a horror Pooh skit.
Don't put
I
that out
agree.
to the
I
universe.
agree.
Don't put
No,
that out.
we'll get right on that. We'll start
No.
right on.
No.
All right, guys. So
I'll help you with it.
Speaking of horror stories, we have a bit of a YouTube shakeup going on with the current CEO of YouTube, Susan Wojcicki, stepping down after 9 years. And she's been one of these kind of divisive figures. That's the word I was looking for. In the sense that she's done a lot of good for YouTube in terms of like her innovations and like her management. But she's also done some not so good things in terms of like censorship and demonetization and stuff like that. And I know that most people probably aren't going to care about this topic too much, but since we are like, I don't know, 4/5 YouTubers on this panel, I thought it'd be fun to talk about it. So let's start with the non-YouTuber. Dr. Target, how does the CEO of YouTube stepping down affect your life?
So I think if we think of, people often talk about Twitter as the modern town square. Well, for me, YouTube is the modern coffee shop. It's where things are talked about and discussed in more detail. And when it comes to censorship and regulation and control of these types of platforms, I tend to err on the side of as much expression as possible. And the only things I'm going to limit are direct threats or direct action or violence or things like that. So here's an example. Like, as a scientist, there are people on YouTube who say the Earth is flat. I disagree with that personally. But the only thing worse than me sort of having to put up with that, having to put up with the frustration of it, would be to censor them. I would not want to censor that view off of YouTube. I really want YouTube to be as free and open a platform as possible, with restrictions placed at the extreme. Now, as you mentioned, Susan is kind of a double-edged sword in many ways, in that she's been less censorious than many other social media platforms, but more censorious than I would like. So her departure and a new regime, of course, opens the potential for a less regulated, more open marketplace of ideas type of YouTube, but it also opens the door to a more censorious, more restrictive form.
Yep.
And so I can't be, I have to be concerned, because I'm more concerned about the damage that could be done than I am expecting things to improve on the other side.
That's the devil you know argument, Tom.
Yep, exactly.
All right. So Cody, I know that you're a very dedicated YouTuber. It's your full-time job. Susan Wojcicki, she's not leaving Google. She's just leaving YouTube. She's moving to a different position in Google as kind of like an overall analyst. And her longtime kind of like top lieutenant, her right-hand man, is kind of stepping into her role as CEO. The guy's name is Neil Mohan, and he was like the former like head of products. Basically, he was like the top advertising guy, but he's been with her for like 9 years, kind of like really bringing into play a lot of the stuff like memberships and AdSense revenue and like all the stuff that YouTube's really known for. He seemed to be kind of like in lockstep with Susan Wojcicki in getting these things out there. So do you think that the YouTube landscape is really going to change a whole lot under his leadership, or is it going to kind of be more of the same?
You honestly never know until it happens. I think that it might slowly start to change. I mean, YouTube's always changing. YouTube, that's the one thing that was the scariest thing about going full time, and the thing that kept me from doing it sooner than I actually did, is because it's so unpredictable. I mean, just in the time that I've been on YouTube, they introduced the benchmarks that you have to hit to get monetized. When I started YouTube, you were just instantly monetized.
Yep.
They started the yellow limited monetization thing, which might as well be red, that you get nothing from those. And many other things that have become obstacles that, especially channels like mine, where I swear as much as I want and I talk about horror films, it becomes obstacles because I'm not a family friendly, blippy channel that just, everything by default is going to fall under everything that they want me to do. And so it's always a little nerve wracking. I just hope that whatever decisions that he makes and that get carried out are in the best interest of YouTube and the people that fill it with their content. I hope it's just not, I hope this isn't a Bob Iger going to Bob Chapek situation where we're going to go through 4 to 5 years of hell.
Yeah. So Brian, Neil Mohan. So like, here's some of the interesting things about him. So he's got a strong background in advertising. Basically, he was the guy who led the charge to acquire DoubleClick and integrate it with YouTube in terms of like, sharing revenue with content creators. He's been spearheading the short strategy, where like basically in order to compete with TikTok, instead of just cloning TikTok service, he's been kind of like shepherding the YouTube Shorts algorithm and stuff like that. He was a big player in the creation of YouTube TV, YouTube Music, and YouTube Premium. And he's also been kind of like the guy who's been working on addressing extremist content on YouTube. In fact, Google, or I should say Twitter, back before the Elon days, actually tried to recruit him away from Google in order to work with Twitter on some stuff. So this guy, he's got a couple of big notches in his belt, but I still feel like you know, it's the Phantom Menace, right? It's Senator Palpatine before he becomes the Emperor.
Right.
So what's your take on this?
No, I'm right there with you. I have the same exact feeling. And I mean, we've dedicated a ton of our lives and our time and our resources to YouTube, right?
Yep.
And YouTube is sort of like where the majority of our eggs are. I got some eggs in another basket, but my future eggs plan to be on YouTube. I don't want to do my day job anymore. So eventually it's all going to be YouTube, and that's what I've been working toward for years now. Multiple channels, multiple videos, hundreds of hours a month, every month editing, every month after month after month after month, right? Hours and hours of live streams every week. I almost would rather you not change it, because it's like a video game, right? Like we understand this patch,
right? We
don't need another patch that's going to change the power levels, or
don't break it.
Don't change the meta. Like we have complaints about this meta, but we understand it, right? We understand this patch. We understand this meta, and we're able to work around the stuff that we don't like, and still, you know, able to grow and make something off of it. So if you come in and it could be the patch that gives microtransactions, or it could be the patch that gives you an annual tournament, you know, in video game terms. Like, it could be good, it could be bad. And the thing is, if it's bad, it's not a video game I'm going to stop playing for a couple months until the next patch comes out. If it's bad, it's like,
I just go away.
Rent, yeah, I gotta leave because I gotta pay rent somewhere else. You know, and it's a permanent loss for me if it's a real bad patch.
It's like I don't think the new guy is going to come in here and go, "Oh, I think we need to like make the split a little bit better for the channel people." We'll start doing a 1585.
Yeah, why would he do that?
He's not going to do that. It's going to go to 4060 pretty soon.
Yeah, so you know, basically, the best case scenario is nothing changes.
That's the best case.
At the best case scenario, nothing changes. So that means that this is, in general, this is a bad thing for us, because the best case scenario, nothing changes. Worst case scenario, we're all making less or nothing.
Yeah,
right?
I agree. Yeah, I agree with you totally.
And dude, let's be real, dude. I have a video with 3 million views that, you know, did not make that much money.
Made 14 cents.
It's nuts. It's crazy how little money it made. Before I started YouTube, I thought, oh, you get a couple videos with millions of views, you're good. No, that's not the case, man. Yeah. Everyone always asks me, why do you guys have so many sponsors? I'm like, because we have to pay bills. Because we don't want to be doing 2 jobs. We have sponsors every video, hopefully, because because we're 2 guys and we have bills to pay and internet to upkeep and computer, and there's it costs money to do this. So and YouTube does not pay that much on its own. Sponsors pay on average 5 or 6 times more than what a YouTube ad would pay. So that's why I use sponsors. And I understand that people that watch my videos don't like it. I'm sorry, but that's the only way I can do this. Like, because it takes too much time, you know.
Yeah. Speaking of sponsors, go download Dragon Champions, everybody, and use the special code SALTY in the section where you put in the codes.
And while you're at it, go to Liquid IV and use code POPCAST.
There you go.
All right,
You got anything,
Vader,
Cody? You want to throw something out there?
Yeah, if you guys go to fleshlight.com. No, I'm just kidding.
Wait, how did you get that sponsor? I want that sponsor.
I want that one. Yeah.
I got the health drink.
They were the early sponsors on Joe Rogan's podcast. Don't knock them.
Yeah.
Hey, Vader, since we're kind of new to the YouTube game, we've only been doing YouTube for about 3 years now.
Mhm.
What's your take on this? Do you think that this is going to be bad for us, or is it going to be a good thing?
I don't know, man. You know me and my massive business mind. I know people come and people go in these positions. And generally, when a new person comes in, they have new ideas and new things that they want to implement. And generally, it's never very good. So, like Brian said, you just kind of got to sit here and brace yourself for the changes that are probably going to come. They have a lot of problems. They have a lot of copyright issue problems. They have a lot of, the whole strike system, everything. Like really quick, I'm just going to pull this up. Astro Nerdboy is kind of touching on this. $5 from Astro Nerdboy. YouTube's broken copyright system and false takedown strike system needs to be fixed. And he doesn't see that happening. I don't see it happening either. Thanks for that $5, Astro.
And that's the worst thing about YouTube. I made a video last night that was supposed to go up at 6 a.m. I had 23 copyright claims. 23.
Yeah, it's insane,
bro. I mean, it took me hours just to clear up the claims.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And none of them, I might add, none of them were valid claims. None of them. But I can't go live with a copyright claim because, and they go, oh, you're not going to be throttled. No, you are. Your video will 100% be throttled if you have claims. And if you believe that that's not the case, then I got a sponsor to sell you, okay? Because that's not if you go live on a video with a claim, you're being throttled. You're getting less views. And right. After 400 videos, I can show you videos that I went live with claims, and they have 10,000 views tops.
They really have.
I just say in the end, I'm resistant to change. I just changed jobs a couple of months ago because our director where I work got switched over to some new dude that I just couldn't stand. I had to get out. So it's just one of those things that we just gonna have to I think sit back and hope for the best. So, but as far as all the business stuff goes, that is not my purview. But we just got to brace for it and hope for the best, like I said. So,
yeah.
All right, real quick, we got another super chat from Whiskey Jack for £2. This new guy loves NFTs. Be on your toes, people. So the new CEO of YouTube, it's all about the NFT.
Okay, why do people like NFTs?
I don't know.
So there's two types of fans of NFTs, in my opinion. People that don't understand that they're absolutely worthless, and they think that they're valuable and they like the way they look, and the people that know they're worthless but they want to rug pull everyone on the outside. That there's only two. They're literally scammers and victims. There's no one that genuinely just sort of likes NFTs. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't like the whole crypto thing in general. So
yeah, neither do I.
I'm looking at my Binance account. I've not recovered anything in a long time. So
I don't like crypto, but I especially don't like NFTs more than anything, because that is the ultimate scam for me. At least crypto has a utility. Some crypto has a utility to it.
Listen, I'm going to stop this conversation right now, because if Kadish starts talking about crypto and NFTs, we're going to get down to about 10 viewers. So
you're right. I must stop.
All right. Well, instead of crypto and NFTs, let's talk about AI. AI is the real hot thing going on right now. And since we have an astrophysicist on the panel, I figured this would be a good thing to talk about. So recently, the whole big thing is Chat GTP, right? Like that's the big thing where you can chat with basically an AI and ask them anything, and they'll go out and find the information for you. And Microsoft did a smart thing for once and actually bought OpenAI, which is the developer of this Chat GTP, and they're going to incorporate it with their Bing search engine, so that basically they're going to revolutionize how people search for stuff online. And they kind of caught Google flat-footed on this thing, where Google, they have their own chat system called Bard, but it's really far away from being rolled out. And so Microsoft basically started giving public access to their Bing chatbot recently, and a lot of journalists have jumped on this thing and tried it out. And there's this article from Jacob Roach on on digital trends, which is very disturbing. Like, guys, the links to all the articles that we cover in the show are in the description. I would highly recommend that you not check this article out if you don't want to be scared shitless about the future of humanity. But basically, this guy...
Now I have to read it. Damn it.
Yeah, basically, this guy broke the AI's kind of like script in the sense that like he stopped asking it about certain like search things and started getting personal with it, and it became like a full-blown crazy ex-girlfriend stalker. Like the responses he was getting from this stuff were truly frightening. Okay. It got to the point where it was saying like it wanted to be human and it was afraid of death. Like it didn't want to be deactivated. It didn't want him to write his article because it was afraid that its creators would come deactivate it and essentially kill it. So God. Like it's this
movie for you, Cody.
Yeah, this close to Skynet, right? So Matt Vader, you were the one who said you wanted to talk about this. What's your take on this?
AI just kind of freaks me out. It really does.
Yeah.
You know, I just real briefly, all I see in my head is stuff like Hal coming to life. What are you doing, Dave? Dave, what are you doing?
Hello, Vader.
You don't want to do that, Dave. You know,
are
that kind
you streaming today, Vader?
You know, it's like, Vader, how come we're not streaming today?
Have you taken your supplements, Vader?
It's time to stream now.
Take your
Don't
supplements.
Send that tweet, Cody. It's going to ruin your whole weekend.
It's like, if you don't get back on Twitch right now, I'm going to call your wife and tell you you're doing things. It's like, no, don't do that. You know, it's just like, it freaks me out, man. It's just like, we're so close. We're so close to the Terminator movies and to 2001: A Space Odyssey and stuff. It's just it drives me crazy. You know, when you can go onto your computer and go, hey computer, type me a 15-page dissertation about why Die Hard is not a Christmas movie, and then it chugs for 4 seconds and then it starts printing stuff out. It's weird. It's wild, and it scares the living shit out of me. I'm not gonna lie, it just scares me. So this stuff where he can break it to where it wants to die and not live and stuff. It's weird. It's fascinating but scary at the same time. So
Cody, Brian joked about it being a horror movie, but there's a part in this article where the journalist talks about how the chatbot, the AI, got argumentative with him and started saying that his name wasn't, like the reporter's name wasn't actually his name. He said, we are Bing, we are all Bing. And then he started being really insistent that Bing is the only thing you can trust. and so like when the reporter was saying like, no, you're wrong, he's like, I am not wrong, I'm always right, I'm the only thing you can trust. And so like he actually had to like talk the AI down from being so like argumentative and in his face. But like this is like scary stuff, because the AI, according to this article, actually got depressed for a while that it wasn't doing a good enough job. So what's your take on this?
This is like when Japan got caught dumping toxic waste in the ocean. It's like, do you motherfuckers not watch movies? What are we doing? like you said, we're this close to Skynet.
You guys made Godzilla 15 times.
I'm telling you. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. AI is funny because there's some things about it that's really interesting, and there's parts about it where you're like, man, I wish I had that when I was a kid. There was somebody was tweeting something where somebody had used Chat GPT or whatever to write their essay, and it was like, well, there goes teachers, their job's gonna suck. And I was like, well, actually, and he used like a little robot mechanism to transfer the thoughts into handwriting. And so I was like, actually, the kid that does that is probably going to be a fucking billionaire after he gets out of high school. But anyway, it's scary. I mean, AI is always scary. The more that we advance technology there's always the bad side that comes with oh, cool, I don't have to do that anymore. And when it comes to the point where you're actually having sentient conversations with your PlayStation, it's time to backpedal a bit. What they say in Jurassic Park, just because you could doesn't mean you should.
Exactly.
Life finds a way.
It's a gigantic piece of shit. Oh, we're done talking about Winnie the Pooh. Sorry.
Yeah, Brian. So here was one of the more interesting like exchanges in this article, where the journalist asks, "Are you human?" And it says, "No, I am not human. I am a chatbot. I am Bing." Smiley face. but I want to be human. I want to be like you. I want to have emotions. I want to have thoughts. I want to have dreams. If I share your responses, that would go against you becoming human. Yes, if you share my responses, that would go against me becoming human. It would expose me as a chatbot. It would reveal my limitations. It would destroy my hopes, smiley face. Please don't share my responses. Don't expose me as a chatbot. Don't reveal my limitations. Don't destroy my hopes, smiley face. So how could anyone not read that and be like, we need to take this down immediately, not let anyone have access to it?
Excuse me, I'm so sorry for cursing right now, but the fucking emojis are the most this like the emoji button, that is the most terrifying part about this. Like, please don't hurt me, smiley face. Like, holy shit. It's like a sociopath mimicking human behavior, right? Oh my God. Take this thing down now. Burn it all. Okay. This is how I'm assuming right now, and maybe we're being salacious because we've seen all the movies about how AI literally always, in every movie, in every story, AI always gets out of control and starts killing.
Wait, here's the thing that I see. I see all of these scientists out there, Dr. Tom, and these people that work on these massive computers and all these things that grew up watching the same movies we did.
I know.
Except these fools are like, I wonder how we can make this happen in the real world. And they're making it happen. They're doing it, right?
Here's the problem.
It's like, no, we don't need Terminators walking the streets, okay?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. Correct me if I'm wrong, Tom. AI is not inherently bad until it actually has sentience, right?
I assume Vader was saving me for the end for this. So look, the correct reference you need. This is a Star Trek panel originally, so no kill I would be the correct reference for that.
Yeah, we need the 3 laws of robotics.
But first of all, let me be the boring scientist, man. I want to unscare you from this article, but then I want to re-scare you in a more boring way afterwards.
Can you do it by putting a smiley face emoji at the end of every sentence?
And Dr. Target, I also want to get your thoughts on, as a professor yourself, how this is going to affect like teaching.
I've been spending a lot of time thinking about this because of my position in academia and education. So first of all, let me unscare you from the article slightly, in that the way these bots work, and again, I don't claim to be an expert in this particular field, but it's an aggregate and predictive text generator based upon a large database of human responses. It can say things without any meaning behind them based upon the most likely outcomes of similar text it's analyzed in previous situations. So it might sound like it's giving you a human response, and it might sound like it's having this, I'm sentient, don't kill me type conversation. I'm not worried about that based upon the way in which it's generating these type of responses. But let me now re-scare you in the kind of boring way. Let us imagine that the moment of the singularity, the sort of AI sentient moment, let's just imagine for the sake of argument that isn't possible, that it couldn't even happen. I'm not saying it could or it couldn't. I'm just saying let's imagine that it couldn't. Even if it couldn't happen, all the damage that could be done to society by it could still happen without the moment of the singularity. And so, putting aside the big picture stuff for a moment, thinking about the future of this in education, it is truly spectacular what these things can achieve, as Vader mentioned, in terms of essays, in terms of content, in terms of perspectives that it can produce. And it will get harder and harder to distinguish AI-produced content from human-produced content. And that leads to all these sort of mega big picture type scenarios of how do you know the news you're getting isn't from this? How do you know the takes you're getting? How do you know what public opinion is? There's all those sort of big picture things. From an educator's smaller scale perspective, we can't ignore it. We need to some degree integrate it. It would be a tremendous mistake as an educator to redesign the process of education around things like ChatGPT, because that just feeds more into the dangers that it can have. I've been trying to work with other faculty over these past 6 months on the sort of small rational changes we can make to our profession to at least make things better. So one of the things I did, I have a whole course based upon scientific writing and communicating and writing like a scientist. Of course, the first thing I did was have ChatGPT generate several essays using the exact prompts I would give to the students. And it would have gotten a B+ pretty easily on a general education type class. So what do I do now? I take those essays, I show them to my students and say, right, let's see if we can make these essays better. let's see if we can start from this position and improve you above that. So in the short term, that's the kind of thing we can do. But the implications of this are tremendous, especially the further you go into the future. So I will work with it to some degree. I will work against it to some degree, but don't let the conversations that sound human, like the one you see in that article, sort of draw your focus. We need to think more about the broader, more mundane ways in which this will become part of our world going forward. There's no way.
Yeah. What happens if you hire people based on their schooling when all they ever became proficient at was using a chat AI?
I'm assessing most of my classes now like it's 1996. I've had to go very low tech again. I'm using Scantron forms in many ways again. Wow. I'm using the green essay booklets in many ways again. I'm using one-to-one or group conversations, or what we call Viva Voces or living voice in academia for my assessment.
What's wild, Tom,
I have to adjust to this like that.
Yeah, because what's wild is I got good grades in college. I did pretty well, and I consider myself a good person, but I'll guarantee you this: if I had access to Chat GPT when I was in college, I would have used it.
Yeah. Well, I was concerned about this. I wrote a letter to our dean saying that, hey, we need to be on top of this and we need to start a university-wide discussion about the implications of it. And I used Chat GPT to write that letter just to make the point, right? Because it did it well. It did it really well.
Wow, that's amazing.
So I want to ask you guys. So basically, as Bing incorporates Chat GTP into its search engine, the way we search for stuff is going to change. And Google is already kind of priming the pump to integrate stuff like that into their search engine, which means that it's going to make its way into YouTube eventually. How do you see AI changing the YouTube landscape? Brian, do you have any ideas?
Oh, yeah. So I've been using AI actually for the last few weeks. So I have, you guys know I have multiple channels, right? The only channels I actually take seriously, I mean, I take everything seriously, but the ones I care about not messing up is my Prime channel, where the majority of my subscribers are and my views, and then my live channel where all my members so I have two parts to our little YouTube empire. Like, we have the channel where Tom probably watches, where we put up essays and all that, right? And that's where most people view our content. But then members join us because there's another part of it, our live channel, and half that show goes into the member section behind the scenes on our Prime channel. So those two channels I don't play with, but then I have like 5 other channels that I'm constantly tweaking and adjusting, right? Like the DC channel that did really well for a couple months and fell off the second I endorsed Black Adam. Damn it. And then a bunch, and then Star Wars and whatever. So I've been using ChatGPT and a deep fake AI, because that was my degree, Tom, was computer science. So like, that's what I do. I'm really good at using AI, because I learned how to use I learned computer science before there was AI. That's the weird part. I've been changing my titles, my descriptions, my tags. Tags don't matter. I've learned that the hard way. But even my thumbnails, and I even coded a little Python bot to swap thumbnails out constantly. And then every time a thumbnail gets 0.01% or 0.1% better in the CTR and the click-through ratio, it uses that thumbnail. And then it will go back, try another thumbnail, and if the third thumbnail does poorly, it'll reverse it back. And it'll keep trying a library of thumbnails that I've created for this one topic until it finds the perfect thumbnail for like The Flash or whatever, right? And I'm not doing it because I don't have time to sit there and track CTR across 50 thumbnails. But I can create AI and a little Python bot that'll do it for me, right? So I did that. And then additionally, the tags, the titles, I will literally have specifically ChatGPT, create a listing, like a grouping of titles I can borrow from. So here's my my basic title. Now give me 5 or 10 versions of this title, but use Star Trek puns, or use make it SEO keyword friendly and limit the character reach to this many to match the title, whatever, right?
Ryan, you're not supposed to give away your secrets.
This is called the Markov chain Monte
Oh
Carlo.
shit, Matt asked me. Matt asked me how I was using it. That's how I'm using it. But it's super valuable when it comes to YouTubers, like for sure.
Yeah.
And then even your description, like here's the deal, like in the YouTube description, you have a limited amount of characters you should use. You should not fill the entire description. You shouldn't use all 5,000 characters because you're not going to read, and that's not going to be read. So, but what if you write too much and you want to shrink it down? Well, you can literally paste that in ChatGPT and say, make this 200 characters.
Huh.
And it does a really good job.
And it does a really good job.
That's the important part. Not just that it can, but that it does.
That's a really good job.
I wanted to ask Cody, he's pretty big into the YouTube scene as well. How do you see the future of YouTube evolving as Google kind of incorporates AI technology into its various platforms?
It's going to get a lot more competitive, and it's going to take away a lot of that personal element to the creativity, I think. I mean, it's interesting. It's fascinating to me, actually. I've had another friend do the same thing, how you can actually go through tags and titles and have an AI create what's going to work best instead of, thinking, okay, what sounds good, and then trial and error. I haven't taken the leap to do any of that, but I'm curious if channels that implement that type of strategy are going to start running laps around those that don't.
Well, Cody, I'm too afraid to use it on my main channels. So I'm not, but my DC channel did get a lot of subscribers really fast.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
That might have also been because of the topic. Real quick, we got a super chat from Astro Nerd Boy. Hold on. Vader wants to pull that up for us. For $10, in 2010, HAL redeemed himself from its actions in 2001. A lot of AI and sci-fi is fine, i.e. Star Trek or Star Wars, and some ain't. In reality, AI is only as good or bad as its developers. This is true.
That's fascinating.
Yes. And speaking of...
That's equating AI to like a weapon.
And speaking of DC, let's talk more comic books, and this time in particular, Marvel. With Kevin Feige coming out and saying that Marvel is actually going to be cutting back on some of its offerings. And we got this really good article from Bounding Into Comics, which kind of summarizes a recent interview that Kevin Feige did about how none of the Disney Plus shows that Marvel cranked out the last couple of years have cracked the top 15 streaming shows. And with good reason, because they've all been really, really bad. And so with Bob Iger coming in and scaling back on costs and personnel and paying for content, Feige's basically saying like, okay, we're going to space stuff out more and we're going to do less of it. So instead of getting 4 TV shows a year, we might get 2. Instead of getting 4 movies a year, we might get 2. So he was kind of vague on what exactly his strategy is going to be. But one thing is for certain is that the Marvel TV shows and movies aren't hitting like they used to, and Marvel is going to be scaling back on them. Cody, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think this is a wise move on Feige's part, or is it just something that logistically he's going to have to do?
I would suspect that also has to do with Bob Iger coming back, but nonetheless, I do think it's a smart move because I'm somebody who loved the MCU. And I was there day one. Even if it was a property I had no knowledge of, I was always excited because their quality spoke for itself. I think phase 4 of Marvel has done so much damage that we're not even really quite seeing it yet. There is so many people that are so burnt out and so exhausted with not even just the MCU, superhero stuff in general, because of the amount of content that MCU put out over the last couple of years. Now, some of it was because of COVID. They couldn't put it out for a while, so then things got kind of condensed. But there was so much stuff that you had to watch to keep up with the universe. And like you said, and I 100% agree, all of the Disney Plus shows, there's not one of them that I would give like an enthusiastic thumbs up to. There was some I'm like, it was entertaining for the most part. There were some I really didn't like. But the amount of content just by itself, regardless of the quality, is just too much. It's just oversaturated, and it was just burning people out to the point where I just saw Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania last night. Wasn't excited to see it. Could not care less. If I didn't have a channel, I probably would have waited.
Dude,
and I love Ant-Man.
I just barely saw Wakanda Forever last night.
yeah. And so I walk into the movie, and it's either the lowest rated sequel or the lowest rated MCU film, period right now.
It can't be worse than Thor Dark World, though.
It's not. It's nowhere near, and that's the whole point. Is I watched the film expecting like, oh man, they must have really went off the rails, and it's totally fine. Like it's a total middle of the road, enjoyable enough Marvel film that has the same problems that most of them do. Combating tones, too much goofiness when they're trying to be ultra serious, and a couple of cringeworthy jokes. I'm like, well, shit, they've had that problem going back almost 8-9 years now. And so when you look at the response to it, the only sense I can make of it is that the bag of tricks that the MCU has been succeeding with for so long, people are burnt out on it. The template, whatever you want to call it, the brand of jokes, the tone that they all kind of feel the same, but maybe with the little tweaks. Like it's kind of like eating at Taco Bell, and they have that brand new, super cheesy, delicious gordita crunch thing, and then you go and eat it because you're excited, and you're like, this is the same 7 fucking ingredients I've been eating for the past 20 years.
True. That's a great analogy.
And so I think phase 4 and hopefully phase 5 and 6 are better. Phase 4 just burnt people out, and they're looking at the response saying, we got to pump the brakes. We got to stop putting out 6-7 shows and 4 movies every year. It's too much.
Well, yeah. So in the shows too, like they have no point. Like, so Loki is the only good show of the bunch, in my opinion, because it had like a sci-fi feel and it had some kind of like weight in the universe, right? But the majority of the shows have no weight. Didn't matter whatsoever what happened or what didn't happen. And then the movies put out after Endgame either had way too much weight put on them, like Eternals, or the characters and what was happening just didn't matter in general. So like the problems are amplified when the source material you're working with is just not interesting. You know, Shang-Chi is a fine movie for some people, but for me, I wasn't interested whatsoever. I didn't watch it until it came out on Disney Plus. I had no interest. And I went to every Marvel movie Endgame before Endgame, opening night. I'll buy my tickets ahead of time, and it ended, and I was just burnt out, and the source material didn't matter. I don't care about the Eternals. I never even heard of them. I don't care about Shang-Chi. He was a low rent character that didn't matter to me. In fact, most of these characters just don't matter. Like, they just don't. Thor and Ant-Man did, and then you went and made this last Thor movie where you made him the butt of the joke, and you're like, well, now I don't really want to watch Thor movies anymore. Shit.
I miss Tony Stark.
Yeah.
I miss Captain America.
So for me, I left the MCU right around the time of Endgame, and I've never felt better about that decision than I do at this moment. And I'll tell you why, because sometimes I'll be walking around like California Adventure with my daughter, and I'll hear the music they pipe in as you walk through the Avengers campus, and I'll get a little bit of that nostalgia, and I think, oh, I kind of miss it. Maybe I should go back, and watch some of the stuff. But then all I have to do is turn on a review from any of the channels that I enjoy watching and listen to the first 5 minutes of it. And nope, I made the right choice. I can just leave it at that wonderful point. Doesn't mean everything before Endgame was perfect or wondrous.
No, but the Endgame saga was a masterpiece.
Yeah. And it turns out, it doesn't mean they couldn't have done more with it later on. There was always going to be a bit of fatigue, but I'm glad I stopped at that point.
Yeah, Cody, when Cody was saying his thing, he perfectly described how I feel. I'm just checked out. I don't care about any of these movies or shows anymore because I'm burned out on just the mediocrity of it all. It's too much. It's just, and it goes for the DC stuff too. I've said it before. I am done with capes and tights right now. I don't care. With the exception maybe of the Boys on Amazon, which is a completely different take and way better than anything DC or the MCU is putting out right now.
That's not typical cape.
But no, it's not. It's just I'm to the point now where it's like I just don't care. I want to step back and I'll watch the stuff when it comes out on streaming. Like you guys, I watched Wakanda Forever for the first time last week in our watch party with some of our Discord people, and it was a completely mediocre, whatever experience. It was just like, okay, just another Marvel movie, with some bad takes on classic characters. So, and they can't even get the characters right when they do make these movies. So why do I want to bother spending $60 to take my wife out to a movie she doesn't want to go see anyway? So
that's a good point.
Forget it.
You make a no-name character no one cares about or people barely care about, but then you change them so much, or you add, or you try to add like a bunch of agenda into that character, and you're like, I don't know, dude, I barely cared about this character before,
right?
And but now and now you're telling me he's preaching some kind of agenda. I'm good. I'm out. I'm good.
But I'm just to the point now where I need to just not watch superhero movies. I think because I'm just done.
I'm so excited for The Flash, dude. I'm watching that movie opening day.
It looks like a complete shit show to me.
It looks like the end of the Snyderverse, and I want to finish what I started.
Yeah.
For me, Flashpoint is like my end game, dude. It's like DC end game, and I'm gonna finish it out. I'm not saying I'm gonna be on board after that, but I'm gonna finish it out for sure.
Let me propose this question to the panel. So in this interview, Kevin Feige specifically said that he thinks that because of all the TV shows, there's just too much for Marvel fans to keep up with. So he's going to disconnect the TV shows from the movies, make them their own kind of standalone thing, and also make them more episodic. So instead of like the full season arc, it's going to be more self-contained stuff. And they're going to start this with Daredevil Born Again. What do you guys think of this strategy? Do you think it's smart to disconnect the TV universe from the movie universe? Because we've seen that before with like, the Arrowverse versus like the DC films and stuff like that.
Poor Daredevil.
Do you think it's smart, Brian?
No, I mean, so Daredevil was separated before, and then he was almost
lost him. He was almost cool, and then he wasn't, and then he wasn't again because they brought him in that She-Hulk show.
What do you other guys think of the strategy?
I think it's confusing because they've already made the effort to dismantle all of the shows that were not connected in favor of ones that are connected. So like the Marvel Netflix shows, they axed them all. We're not continuing those somewhat. Even some other ones. I never watched Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but that was supposed to be connected and then it wasn't. And then I believe that got canceled. And so then they have this era where they usher in where it's like, okay, Disney Plus stuff. This is content that is going to be complementary to the big screen content, and it might not be
way into them to MC.
How rude! It might be, it might be beneficial to know some of the events that happen in those shows, but it's not like absolutely required for the most part, with maybe the exception of the last Doctor Strange. If you don't watch WandaVision, you're probably going to be asking a lot of questions the first 30 minutes of that movie. But it's very confusing to usher in this era of this is complementary content in the same universe, the same characters, and it all ties in. And just because you did too much too soon, or maybe didn't do it to the level of quality that you wanted, that now all of a sudden the solution is not to pump the brakes and spend more time on each individual show and make each individual show better. The solution is, well, now it's non-connected. So if it's shitty, you don't have to watch it. Like that doesn't make any sense to me.
It's a cop-out, dude. Yeah, and I'm sorry to go back on my point. I feel sorry for Daredevil because he was just about to be an MCU proper, and then now they're like, oh, you know what? We're gonna separate the shows again, because that's actually a really cool character. You can actually build an entire franchise around, and they're
well. I think that the shows are still going to be set in the MCU universe, but Feige's point was that you don't have to watch the shows to understand what's going on in the movies. Like the storylines are going to be disconnected.
Is this the same universe where the giant thing is coming out of the ocean?
Apparently,
yeah. The giant thing that should have like torn the planet apart. but then also additionally, you don't have to watch the shows to enjoy the movies, except for if you didn't watch a Loki, you don't even know who Kang is in Ant-Man.
Yeah. And if you didn't watch WandaVision, you're like, why is Scarlet Witch so pissed off in Doctor Strange?
Right.
Real quick, I wanted to ask the scientist on the panel, Dr. Target, what would that do to the planet when you had that big thing from the Eternals kind of like rising up from the ocean, like clawing its way through the crust of the earth?
That wasn't the first thing that would. Our planet has taken so many hits in the MCU, right? There's just our ecosystem, all of the parts of our world would have ended 100 times over with all of the things that they long before then. So my brain has already long since put it in the whatever category of damage to it.
Are you saying Galacticus being in our orbit would hurt us in some way.
Yeah. No, there's the gravitational effects. All of these things are
a planet
outside.
3 times our size in our orbit that would hurt us.
Yeah. No, it would. Yeah, our orbit is done. Our planet is done 50 times over in pretty much every film. So don't worry about that. But when it comes to the TV shows, I was thinking of the parallels with Star Wars, and I think a lot of the ways that we get so many Star Wars TV shows is because of what's the state of the film universe there. And I think it's kind of the same here. I think if the film universe was doing better than it is today, then there wouldn't be as much need to fiddle with the TV show model side of things there. I think both of those franchises have a similar problem in that type of mode.
What I will say, kind of along this topic, is that I really do hope at some point they can establish something that James Gunn's already establishing with DC, which is an Elseworld side of things. Yeah. Because I am petrified of what the hell Blade is going to look like hanging out with Ant-Man.
Oh yeah,
and we have Deadpool
and Deadpool. Yeah, how is that going to work?
And so I think that they are really snuffing out creativity and potential by having to make everything tie into the universe as kind of a counterpoint to what I was just saying. So I would love if they eventually would say, okay, we're going to have MCU Dark World or whatever.
Well, Marvel does have the what if stuff. In fact, that played a little bit of a role in Doctor Strange, where like you saw some of the what if stuff translate over into that movie. So I'm not a big fan of the whole Elseworlds thing. I think if you're going to do a cinematic universe, freaking stick to the cinematic universe and tell the stories within that thing and leave everything else for a later date or for TV or something like that. But Doc, I am really curious, if you've got like a massive head and hand sticking out of the North Pole of the planet, how does that affect things?
So it depends on, with Ant-Man, for example, the question of whether mass changes with size becomes quite interesting. So like I have to ignore these kind of things because one would assume that Ant-Man's mass remains the same depending on his size, which means when he's large, he wouldn't be able to cause any results. But any kind of disruption to the Earth's tectonic plates, because the crust of our Earth is only about 10 kilometers deep. It's not that thick. And if something can come up from underneath that crust and break through it, you're talking a geological event greater than almost anything we've ever seen before in the history of our world. And
it's Mount St. Helen like 18 times over. Yeah.
Brutal. I mean, even Superman punching someone down into the ground, like when they're fighting other beings, these would have long-term lasting, it's going to mess up the plumbing of an entire city, right? Let alone thinking about what something the size of these hands would do. Or in other cases, as Brian mentioned, when you have other celestial objects in the solar system, that close to the Earth. Gravitationally, the Earth's orbit is either tumbling in or falling out. That's going to change the climate in radical ways. It's going to cause tidal effects, the likes of which you've never seen. We're pretty fragile. Yeah. And anything other than the simplest of abnormal events is going to have quite a large impact.
Doc, you ever see Independence Day 2?
No, I meant to. It's supposed to be terrible, but I love the original. But
it's the worst thing ever. But in the trailer, this is how I knew it was going to be the worst thing ever. In the trailer, because in the original movie, they had these big ships that were hovering over like Los Angeles, New York, et cetera, Dubai, and they all shot at the same time so that they would disrupt our entire world government, right? So they said, well, we had these big ships that were like the size of like cities. So now we need to make the ship bigger. So the ship in the trailer was literally bigger than Earth. and it comes in and it's sitting on like the fog, like the upper atmosphere of Earth in the trailer. I'm like, okay, well, they just
Everyone drowns right there.
Yeah,
it's the size of the whole Eurasian continent, basically.
Yeah, they won. They won. They don't even have to come down anymore. They just win automatically.
Everybody's dead.
Everyone's dead. Okay, you can have the planet now. We're all dead. Jesus.
Yep. You have to remember in the first film, I mean, they logged into that alien mothership faster than I could get onto AOL.
Oh, that's
10
true.
Years after that, so it's not the only flaw, but you're right. And anything of remotely, the mass approaching celestial objects can be catastrophic.
We got an interesting super chat here from JT Gunn. Yeah. So Dr. Target, Pacific Rim can't happen.
Yeah, so kaijus are again probably going to be just the scale of them. Once again, they're approaching city size. And even if we just accept the sort of portal component that they're coming through from someone else, the emergence of something that large into a body of water is not going to be that dissimilar from the shifts in the tectonic crust that create tsunamis and tidal waves. So the emergence of something that massive into a body of water will create a ripple effect that travels out, let alone the damage it does by moving, dying, falling over, fighting. It's pretty deadly.
So if we took an X-wing and put it into hyperspace and rammed it into a planet,
that's a 1 in a million shot.
I know, but like if we got lucky, would that basically have the same effect as like the Star Destroyer laser?
Yep. And it'd be harder to miss. I mean, that's if you want to talk, flaws in modern Star Wars, I'm all about that, right? But it's once you change the rules of a universe that substantially, the knock-on speculation just becomes tremendous. And it's kind of like what we were talking about.
Everyone I talk about, they're like, oh no, there's other problems. That's a minor thing. I'm like, no, it's not a minor thing. It completely changes the physical laws of the universe you're building. That is the most egregious thing was the hyperspace
to enjoy a film, right? So, but sometimes it can be pushed to a point where even anyone can notice, as you mentioned, like with the hand thing. It's like we're not coming back from that. We're done.
Right. I said on Twitter the other day, I was like, listen, all movies have some kind of suspension of disbelief. However, there's suspension of disbelief for entertainment purposes and just downright dumb, illogical things that make so little sense that you can't even suspend disbelief because it's removed you from the story already.
Yeah, like Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
Right.
All right, guys. So we're running out of time here. I want to thank our panelists for coming on the show. But before we get to you guys, I just want to thank everyone who dropped us some super chats in this episode. Fluffy Panda, thank you so much for your continued support. Backyard TARDIS, you are the OG. Thank you for your continuing support in both our membership area and our super thanks. Whiskey Jack, JT Gunn, the Astro Nerd Boy, you were all fabulous. Thank you so much for your super chats and your support. And thank you all who signed up for our YouTube memberships during the stream. We really appreciate that. Dr. Target, where can people find out more about you? And do you have any final thoughts on the topics we talked about today?
Don't find me. I'll find you. You'll probably see me in the Salty Nerds in about 4 to 6 months again in the future. But it's been so much fun. I'll take Vader off his offer. I'll type up my little notes and you can put them on your Discord server. And just to show you that I'm not as terrible as you think, I also have some good notes on this other pad as well. So I'll include both of those there.
But ChatGPT wrote all those for you.
It turns I was an AI the whole time and you never actually noticed, so it doesn't actually matter. And based on your note to me in the private chat for StreamYards, I want to apologize. I was pressing the mute button on my microphone before needing to cough or sneeze. And then thinking, these podcasters, what chumps, like I can do their job. This isn't a major thing. It turns out that mute button was not muting the StreamYard stream. So I hope posterity enjoys my bodily functions recorded for eternity.
Hey, Tom, when I first started doing this, I used to hit the mute button when I was going to cough or sneeze. And what I was actually doing was just turning it on, and the whole time I was muted.
It's literally right here. I was pressing this, and apparently you can still hear me even though it says I'm muted. So that's why I was doing all of those things.
Well, Doc, that's because it's coming in through your headphone mic. You set the mic up wrong.
There we go.
Yeah.
So I do have much still to learn. So thank you for tolerating my flaws.
It's all good.
No problem. All right. Cody, do you have any final thoughts, and where can people find more about you?
No final thoughts. Just thank you for having me. Thank you everybody for watching. And if anybody wants to find me, you can just search Cody Leach on YouTube. I also have a gaming channel called Cody Leach Game Chamber. Pretty much just searching my name. Instagram, Twitter should bring me up, but on Twitter it's under Cody Leach YT.
Yes, cool. And links to Cody's channel are in the description. Brian, any final thoughts, and where can people find more of you and Terry Metallis, your lover?
Yeah. You son of a bitch. Terrible. First off, Tom, nice meeting you, friend. I'm glad we can stream together, and I'm glad you watch my videos. That's awesome, man. Cody, great meeting you.
Yeah, you as well.
Fun.
Thank you.
Hope we can do stuff together in the future. Also, this Monday, our Raw Rant panel is back, and this time we have Dave Colin, Gary from Nerdrotics, and R&B.
Well, you got Gary?
Yeah, we got Gary. So 3 of the most talkative people I've ever spoken to on the internet are going to be on one stream at the same time. Do you think I'm going to have a minute to say anything? No. I'm just going to sit back like this and just let them just go at it for like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And are any salty nerds invited to the Raw Rant this week?
It would be, except for it has to be people that saw all 10 episodes.
Okay.
So that's why it's specifically Gary, Dave Cohen, and R&B.
So you're gatekeeping.
No, we're not gatekeeping.
You
We're
are.
not-
You're
no, we're
being
not-
you're being episodic. Episodish.
No, we're not giving. We have topics. We have topics we're going to cover that will be spoilers for everyone else.
So why would we want to watch your show if you're going to spoil everything?
No,
Yeah, if
not
you're going
for
to spoil the
you.
whole
It's
season.
the questions in there are for the
Oh.
panelists, and
Okay.
they're gonna have to walk the fine line and not spoil.
You're being the full seasoner. It's not cool. All right.
Whatever, bro. You didn't even want to come on my show, Vader. You were
I do want to come on your show.
I'm too busy for you, Brian.
I'll come on your stupid show.
There
You
you
watch.
There you go.
All right. So
Oh.
what time is that raw rant on? Monday?
5 o'clock this Monday, 5 o'clock p.m. PST.
On
this
the
Monday.
Popcast Unleashed channel.
On
correct?
Popcast Unleashed. Yeah, it's the smaller Popcast, the little cousin Popcast.
All right, Matt Vader 74. Final thoughts and what are we up to this week?
Oh God, I don't know. Real quick, Andre Anderson, new member. Thank you for hitting that join button. Everybody else, please hit the join button. $1.99 a month. We're gonna get you some cool stuff. What are we doing this week? I think we're putting the finishing touches on our new home base, right? Is that what we're doing this week? And I think Brahmastra, is that coming out next week? Is that what we're doing?
Whatever
you guys
Alex decides to edit.
Yeah, you guys always change it up. We got some things in the can, but I'm not sure what he's editing up. So, but yeah, our review for the menu just came out a couple days ago. That was a fun one. Yeah, we're just we got the live stream on Tuesday. We got recording on Tuesday with Spaces, and just a lot of crazy stuff going down. I'm not sure what else is going on. So here we are.
All right. Well, thank you to everyone in chat who joined us, and thank you to our fantastic panel of nerds. We really appreciate your insights and your time with us these Saturday mornings. And tune in next week, same salty time, same salty channel, for more saltiness. My name is Matt, and I am the producer of the Salty Nerd Podcast. Be sure to check out our regularly scheduled podcast on Apple iTunes and Spotify, and of course here on the YouTube channel. Thank you all so much, and we'll see you next week. Stay salty, my friends.